Start game now.
I know what you're saying. What's Scrooge McDuck doing there? It must be that Disney is going to make a profit, because wherever Disney is making a profit, Scrooge is not too far behind. And that's right, because today we are going to look at Aladdin for the Sega Genesis. Actually, today starts a new series here at Retro Reviews with the No Swear Gamer. We are going to start a series called the ABCs of Retro Gaming. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the alphabet starting at A, ending with Z, and for every letter I'm going to find a game that starts with the same letter and review it. It might be a good game, might be a bad game, might be somewhere in the middle, but what's important is that the first letter of the game starts with the same letter. And what better way to start it off than with Disney's Aladdin for the Sega Genesis. Just looking at this box art here, you can just see how good they did with this game right here. I really appreciate all the action going on here. I like the fact that Aladdin is actually holding a sword. That actually has a lot to do with what's going to go on in the game. So they didn't just take some sort of movie art and transfer it to the box. I believe this is original just for the box, but it looks really great. Got the genie, got Apu, the little monkey, and of course your nemesis Jafar. If you know the game, you know that this scene right here with the flames and the carpet and everything going on actually tells you a lot about the game. Looking at the back, you have some very nice screenshots giving you a taste of what is yet to come. It is a one-player game. It is from 1993, based on the 1992 movie, and I must admit that during what I consider a golden age for Disney, during the time when movies like Little Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, and Lion King were around, Aladdin was my favorite. I know typically the Lion King gets the lion's share, ha ha ha, but Aladdin was my favorite. But you know, just because it was a good movie doesn't mean it's a good game, and quite often movie-based games do not turn out well. This game was actually made by Virgin Games, but it was published by Sega. Some people don't realize that Virgin Interactive actually made the game. There's also a version for the Super Nintendo made by Capcom. Now, usually back in the 16-bit era, pardon me, when a game was made based on a movie, it usually came out on both the Super Nintendo and the Sega Genesis, and usually was by the same company, and they were usually, typically, close to the same game with just a few differences, but not in this case. In a rare instance, Aladdin on the Genesis is quite different from the Capcom version, and there's actually a little debate which one is better, but let's go ahead, let's pop Aladdin into my Sega Genesis system and find out how good or bad Aladdin for your Sega Genesis is. The first thing I notice when playing Aladdin for your Sega Genesis is the graphics. They are truly amazing in this game, and it makes sense because Disney animators actually made the animation. Now, they may not have digitized it and programmed it into the game, but the specific animations in this game comes from Disney themselves. As a matter of fact, I think this is one of the best looking Sega Genesis games on the system, and if this game was never made but all of a sudden popped up on a system like the 3DS, maybe polished the jaggies, you know, the edges a little bit, but if it showed up on the 3DS, I think people still, even today, would say that the graphics are awesome. They had some just top-notch animation. It's really slick. It moves. You'll just find yourself looking at even the backgrounds. They drop these little hints like Mickey Mouse ears, and you might even see like a goofy face or something. I'm just telling you, this game looks good, and the music is good as well, really good. They took the Aladdin score, which I think is one of the best Disney scores, so yes, I may be biased, but they took it, and I don't know if the Genesis ever sounded so good. The music, you could tell what's going on. They have some great themes from the movie. It just really fits well, and the sound is good as well. There's really nothing to complain about. But graphics and music don't matter if the gameplay is not there. And I am glad to say that in Disney's Aladdin for the Sega Genesis, the gameplay is here in spades, hearts, diamonds, whatever your trump is. Now, in the game, it is a side-scrolling platformer where you are Aladdin trying to rescue Princess Jasmine from the evil Jafar. In the game, you carry a sword the whole time, which you can swing at will. You cannot throw it, however you can also collect apples to throw. Now the apples are limited to based on what you collect, and interestingly enough, some of the bosses require that you hit them with the apples to defeat them. The sword will have no effect. Now the sword has effect on all your common enemies, but some of the bosses only are affected by apples. Yeah, it's like, oh, Aladdin, who scored a sword? That is so scary. Please, Mr. Aladdin, don't hurt us with that. Oh, wait. He's got apples. He's got apples. Guys, apples. Watch out. He's serious. He's got apples. But that's just how it works in the game. So you can jump around, you move really smoothly. It's one of these games where if you die, you have no one to blame but yourself. And that is how all games should be. And the levels are really well designed. Now there are some challenges. For instance, the first time I was replaying this through, I got stuck on the lava stage, but eventually I figured out where I'd have to do a jump and when I'd have to time my movements, and once I got it, I got it. So the level design, I think, is challenging, but at the same time, it's not to a point where it gets so frustrating. And if it does get frustrating, you can just Google it or look at other YouTube videos and figure out what you're doing wrong. But for the most part, you'll be able to figure it out with a little bit of practice. So yeah, the level design is really good, and it should be, because it was designed, headed up by a man named David Perry. Now before Aladdin, he was known for a couple other good Sega Genesis games that were known for good animation and level design, that being Cool Spot and Robo Gladiators. And later on, he would form Shiny Entertainment, which brought us Earthworm Jim, which is also praised for being a side-scrolling platformer with beautiful animation and well-done level design. So is it any wonder? But I truly think that Disney's Aladdin on the Sega Genesis is really good. Now there's also some bonus levels. If you collect Apu the monkey, if you see his icon and collect him, you will go to a bonus stage at the end of the level you're on, which Apu is given one hit. If he's hit, that's it, he's done. But as long as he is kind of dodging all these obstacles, he can collect all these power-ups and lives and gems and what have you. The same thing kind of for Genie. There's all these Genie icons, and kind of like the coins in Super Mario Bros. 2, it operates a slot machine that only has a single window, and every Genie icon you collect gives you a chance to kind of spin the wheel. Now as you spin it, you can collect bonus lives, you can also collect gems and apples. However, if you hit Jafar, it doesn't matter how many Genie icons you've collected, that's it, your game is done. But I found that sometimes I would hit Jafar early, and other times it seemed like I just hit one life after the other, and that's just kind of how it goes. Now, speaking of the game and the gems, there are these gems you can collect, and if you collect enough, you can actually turn them into a street vendor if you find him. You'll see this guy kind of standing on the side of the road. If you remember, he was at the very beginning of the movie. If you stand by him, his little booth will open up, and you will have two choices. If you have 5 gems, you can buy an extra life, and if you have 10, you can buy a wish, which is basically a continue. So there's definitely value in saving up to those 10 gems. But overall, I think Aladdin is just a great game from top to bottom. It is a pretty family-friendly game. Yeah, now, yes, Al does carry a sword throughout the game and is swinging it at the enemies and attacking them with it, but whenever he attacks them and defeats them, they just poof away, just like the Genie. There is no blood whatsoever. Basically, if you would let your kid watch the movie, the game should be just fine for them. Actually, I think the movie probably has a little more scarier portions than the game itself, but then again, you know, it is still, both of them I would consider fairly family-friendly entertainment. So yeah, but I wouldn't say that this is just a kid's game. I think some little kids might get really challenged by this, and I think some adults might overlook this because the license, maybe when they owned a Genesis, this was later in the Genesis life, maybe they already moved on to the Street Fighter kind of games, and they may have overlooked this. And I fear that some people overlook this game today. I don't hear a lot of people talking about Aladdin for the Sega Genesis nowadays. I hear, you know, other classic games being brought up, such as your Sonics and your Marios. I think that this deserves to be in the conversation. Now, if you go on eBay, I was looking around today and I figured out that basically a price for a loose cart with shipping included would be about $7 to $8. So it is a little bit more than your average game. If you want a complete copy with the box and the instructions, that's going to cost you about $15-16, somewhere in that price range. You'll also see it in a lot of lots. It was a very popular game for Sega. They sold millions of these, so it shouldn't be too hard to track down a copy of Aladdin, but I wonder how many people actually want to sell their copies, so there might be just a little demand for it. Okay, so where would I rank Aladdin? Obviously, I really like this game, and as far as all the games go that I've reviewed so far, this is probably the only other game outside of Bust-A-Move 2 that I would recommend a purchase if you are a Sega Genesis owner. I think anyone who owns a Sega Genesis should own Aladdin at least one point during their system's life to at least try it out, play it, give it a chance. The replayability is a little lacking in the fact that it's a one-player game, and once you get through the story, that's it. There is also, you can give it a harder difficulty. It does give you that option. There's also a practice mode as well. But generally speaking, you go through the game, you know it's there once you get it down. I remember I used to borrow this from my friend. He had a copy, and it was fun to the point that I would actually play through it over and over again once I got it down. It is pretty good, but because the replayability is just a little limited, I'm going to put it one notch under Bust-A-Move 2 Arcade Edition for the PlayStation 1 and say that it's still, though, a really good game, definitely worthy of a purchase. That's a lot more than I can say for a lot of these other games. So yeah, there you go. Disney's Aladdin, highly recommended on the Sega Genesis. It is different than the Super Nintendo version. You definitely need to try this version out if you haven't already. Hey, this was a great way to start the ABCs of retro gaming, but I am going to need your help on some of future titles, and the way you can help me is by finding me on Google Plus or Facebook. If you go to facebook.com/TheNoSwearGamer, you'll find me there, and from time to time I will post up some options that I can do for various letters. For instance, I just put out a list of games I own that begin with the letter B, and I'm asking for help. Which game with the letter B should I choose? And you can help by going on there, just giving your input. It'd also be great to meet some of the listeners or viewers and just kind of get along and share some retro fondness, if you will. But yeah, go to Facebook or Google Plus, find me and help me complete this series, the ABCs of retro gaming. This is the No Swear Gamer telling you thank you for making me a little part of your day, and have a good one.